But let me tell you what you don't do. Let's start from there. You don't go locking hands with him in a room. No. You don't do that. You go straight to your room, pack up your bags, pack up your long ball gowns, everything you came to that town with, and you literally get to the airport in your carriage. You fly out of town.
Dearest reader, it has been said that competition is an opportunity for us to rise before our greatest of challenges.
This is actually my first time talking about this show. I've seen Bridgerton twice now. I enjoyed watching it just for the whole fictional part of the show because it's supposed to be based on a true life story, but obviously it's been heavily modified and has a lot of diversity.
You have no idea what it is to have one's entire life reduced to a single moment.
I decided after watching it the second time to do a couple of videos about it because there were some things that I found interesting about the show. And yeah, this is me sharing my thoughts with you about Bridgerton. Hi, my name is Susan. If you're new here, welcome. If you're not new here, how's it going? Now, I changed my scenery a bit and I am in front of my desk and it feels a little bit like I'm doing some newscasting. So pardon me if I don't feel so comfortable with this position. Did Kate really betray Edwina? Did Kate's betrayal of Edwina make sense? Was it forgivable? Is it something that we can get past? Now, one of the things that I personally can get past in Bridgerton was this situation. And I'm going to be super honest with how I feel in this video because I think that majority of people that watch Bridgerton, majority of us were able to get past this and kind of fell in love with Kate and Anthony. The whole Anthony hashtag has obviously gotten viral because of how much people love this too. Now, I'm not gonna lie, the first time I saw the second season, I love that they were individually opposed to the idea of marriage and they found love with each other. But the second time I was like, nah, fam. Edwina absolutely did not deserve what she got from her sister. If you saw the first season, it was nice to see how Daphne and the Duke of Hastings, Simon, how their story started from Daphne really serious about getting a husband and Simon not bothered because, let's face it, the guys were not the ones that needed to get married at that point. Like, the pressure was not as much as the woman in that era. And even now, Daphne was trying to get a husband as soon as possible so she doesn't become a spinster.
If I'm unable to find a husband, I shall be ruined.
And, have difficulty getting a husband down the line because I guess she was in a prime at the point and she was very attractive and even turned out to be the Queen's Diamond of the season. So she really needed to get a husband. Okay. And somehow Simon and Daphne got together. It was supposed to be a pretentious relationship between them. And it turned out that they actually fell for each other and they got married and had like ups and downs down the road. But that's not the focus of today's video. The focus of today's video is the love story between Kate and Anthony. And honestly, I did not find it so cute. I'm not gonna lie. I just wasn't comfortable with the fact that this happened between sisters. I can't explain why, but I don't think that there's anything adorable about falling in love with your sister's husband to be. Yes, I know Anthony and Edwina had no feelings. And yeah, they didn't love each other, so it was okay. But I think that there should still be something called the sisterhood that you don't break. And honestly, personally, I don't think that the writer of this particular story has a sister because this is not something that anyone should do to their sister ever. Like, catch those feelings somewhere else. I don't care. Now, before I unleash my annoyance at Kate, I have to say that Simone Ashley is one very beautiful woman and it's hard to be upset with this kind of character because, of how soft-spoken and smart she turns out to be in the story, but I will still be upset at her. Now, we know the story. Kate and Edwina and Newton came into town with their mom to find a husband for Edwina. Their mom wasn't really present in their lives when they were younger. So Kate is kind of older, kind of God-parentified and literally treats her sister like she's gold, which is clearly so precious to say because, Kate herself is 26 now and she's not even looking for a husband for herself. She's there strictly on a mission to find a husband for her sister.
All you have to do this evening is remember what it is you're looking for.
Someone charming. And handsome, of course.
Now, there's obviously some kind of inheritance for the family when Edwina gets married. So I believe, according to the story, Kate is just looking to get her sister married and settled and possibly take care of the estates that they would have access to once Edwina gets married. Now, the beginning of this season starts with us meeting Kate. She's racing on her horse into this town, and obviously not among the town. She's in some field that, not surprisingly, Anthony also finds himself as well. So predictable in Bridgerton, because I personally could tell that these two were going to end up together just from watching this interaction. Like, it was, tell me, if you're watching this, tell me, wasn't it so obvious that these two would end up together? So they had a little chat. Anthony was quite curious and, I would say, intrigued by Kate. But this intrigue quickly turns to hatred because Kate finds out that this guy, this Viscount, one, has a reputation for basically sleeping around, and two, he doesn't necessarily intend to marry for love. He just wants a woman that's beautiful and smart enough to be Viscountess. So she finds out, she's not so shocked. Okay, but when she sees that her sister is being introduced to Anthony, she's livid and she's like, no way, you are not marrying that man. And they're actually at an event, like a ball or something, and she walks her sister out of that event because she wants her to have nothing to do with Anthony.
Hear that, Mom? He cannot give you the love you deserve.
Now, as you can imagine, there is like back and forth here. Anthony is persistent in asking for Edwina's hand in marriage, even though he clearly has no feelings for her. But again, as we already know, Anthony is not mine for love. He already made that clear. He made that clear to his family, but he didn't make that clear to the person that he was trying to get married to. With the pushback that Anthony is getting from Kate, it doesn't stop him. If anything, it pulls him into the family. He's like, wow, I love this challenge. So he's like pursuing after Edwina the more. And we see here that most of the times they spend together, Anthony is arguing with Kate. Like, there's always one bickering or the other going on. They are arguing about the flimsiest of things, and usually these meetings are supposed to be for Edwina to get to know Anthony and Anthony to get to know Edwina, but it ends up with Anthony and Kate talking to each other and arguing with each other. Obviously, Edwina didn't know better. Okay, she just thought, this is just my sister, making trouble. It's possible that Edwina has seen her sister do this before, and she knows that her sister is quite stubborn and maybe opinionated, and she's not so shocked to see that her sister is having this argument with Anthony. But she can't tell that these arguments are a little too much for someone that just doesn't like an in-law. Clearly, it had gone beyond that at this point, and she couldn't see it. Like, every other person could see it. And I think it was funny because at the end, like, after the whole thing happened and she saw how much in love they were with each other, she was like, how was I blind to this? Like, was I the only one who didn't notice this? And it's like everyone was screaming at the screen like, yes, Edwina, you were literally the only one who didn't notice. And next thing we know, we're literally being dragged and drugged with your typical enemies to lovers story. Kate and Anthony are in love and they're in denial. They finally come to terms with it, but it's too late. It's happening days before the wedding.
I love you. I've loved you from the moment we raced each other in that park. I've loved you at every dance, on every walk, every time we've been together, and every time we've been apart. You do not have to accept it. You do not have to embrace it.
Literally, when they both agree that they have feelings for each other, that they cannot ignore anymore. And this is days before Anthony and Edwina's wedding. And they do the most stupid thing ever. They both decide that we are not going to let our feelings get in the way. They decide that Anthony and Edwina's wedding is going to go on. And I actually want to stay a little bit on this because you know what I think? I think this story would have turned out a bit differently if Edwina had feelings for Anthony. The reason that we excuse what happened here is because there were no feelings between Edwina and Anthony. Imagine if this was a situation of unrequited love, a situation where Anthony didn't love Edwina as much as Edwina loved Anthony. Imagine if Edwina actually really had feelings for this guy. You know that this would have been unforgivable, right? Everything turned out really messed up because Edwina found out what was going on literally at her wedding. She was standing expecting to receive, give her vows to the person that is supposed to be her husband. But instead, she sees Anthony and Kate literally locking eyes. I don't think there's anything more humiliating than this, honestly, because how do you explain how upsetting this must have been for Edwina? Like, it's nice to see that these two came together, but I don't think we really think much of being in Edwina's position or being in Edwina's space in this situation. Now, I have a couple of things to say. What do you do if you're in Kate's situation? Kate was literally telling Edwina not to get married to this guy, and then she catches feelings. But let me tell you what you don't do. Let's start from there. You don't go locking hands with him in a room. We saw scenes where they walk past each other and their hands would almost touch. No, no, no. You don't do that. You go straight to your room, pack up your bags, pack up your long ball gowns, everything you came to that town with, and you literally get to the airport in your carriage. You fly out of town. Yes, that's what you do. You don't stay around to understand what these feelings mean. No. And let me tell you why. It's simply out of respect for your sister. I'm not saying that those feelings were not valid. Those feelings were there. Like sometimes, obviously, you can't choose who you have feelings for. You can't choose who you love, by the way. Let's just put that out there. You can, absolutely. But you might not necessarily be able to choose who you have feelings for, which I believe was the case here with Kate. But then again, I think that if that was the situation, right, we see that she was doing her best, advising Edwina not to get married to this guy because she knew that, one, the guy had feelings for her. Two, the guy was not looking to marry for love. Those were the two reasons she was advising against it. But she couldn't tell Edwina about the second part, about the fact that Anthony had feelings for her, because how was she going to explain it? How was she going to explain to her sister that the person that she was advising her against getting married to now has feelings for her, and she has exactly the same level of feelings for him? Like, how is she going to explain that? So I kind of understood her dilemma there, but I would say that I don't think it was right for her to stay back and still be like trying to figure out those feelings. Of course, her excuse, she would say, for staying back was that she was trying to find a husband for her sister. But at that point, her staying back was no longer about that. Like, she had feelings for Anthony. She did not know how to process it. Anthony at first was in denial about his feelings for her, but then he eventually figured that this was what was going on. I personally don't think they should have gotten married at that point. Let's think about it this way, and let me explain why I think that their decision to proceed with the wedding was stupid. What was the plan? So when Anthony marries Edwina, what will happen? What was Kate planning to do? Never visit her sister. Was that the plan? Because when they get married, she still has feelings for Anthony. What happens when she comes to visit? Are they going to have an affair? Like, what was the plan? That's why, to me, it made no sense that they still proceeded. And obviously, they were possibly doing this to invalidate the feelings that they had for each other, because they felt that if Anthony and Edwina got married, the feelings would disappear. But that was wrong. Obviously, they just weren't willing to face the truth. Anyway, the other thing is, Anthony was also at fault here for leading on Edwina, right? When he clearly had feelings for his sister. The best thing to have done at that point is, not proceed with the whole process. Like, even if he still wanted to explore his feelings for Kate, he should have literally stopped the engagement, stopped everything that was going on, instead of making Edwina look like a fool, because that was what she ended up looking like at the end of the day, right? Because she couldn't see that these two were in love, and she literally found out on her wedding, which is absolutely devastating. I have so many people to blame for this, but Anthony and Kate were primarily responsible for Edwina getting into this mess. Obviously, I also think that Edwina possibly wasn't necessarily trying to get married for love, if you think about it, because, her sister told her a lot about what it meant to be in love, how that, she would feel him staring at her and stuff like that, and she wasn't getting that. So I think it was one of two things. She did not know what it meant, and that's why she was still proceeding with this relationship with Anthony, because she couldn't relate to the experience of being in love, and she probably thought that it would happen possibly after they get married. Okay, so I don't blame her for that at all, because we are made to believe and understand in this series that a lot of the women are naive to a lot of things, but I don't think one of those things they are naive to is the feeling of being in love. Because even with Daphne, we could see that she wasn't going to marry all those other men that she came and had no feelings for. So as much as Daphne was naive about understanding what it meant to have a baby, or the process that goes into having a baby, she wasn't naive enough not to understand that she didn't like or love somebody enough to be married to them. So that's why Edwina's situation, to me, was like she possibly knew that she was not in love with Anthony, but still wanted to marry him anyway. I don't know. What do you guys think? I really like to know. Another thing I noticed was when Edwina came out of this, and she was really upset. When she came into this town, she was like so polite and goody tissues and nice to everyone and did what she was told. But like when this happened, she was so direct with people. She was not trying to be polite. She was like looking into people's faces and telling them exactly what she was thinking. And I'm like, did it take Anthony to bring this out? Did it take your sister's betrayal? Did it take a whole situation like this to bring out your true personality? That was fun. It felt like her whole personality changed after that event, after that situation. I think that she was supposed to get married to the prince at the end, which I think would have been such a fine choice for her because the prince seemed like he was decent, and I really was rooting for the prince and Daphne to be together, especially with all the nonsense that the Duke of Hastings was dealing with. But at the same time, I love that they ended up together. But it would definitely be a fine choice for Edwina to end up with the prince. We can only hope that the princess situation is not like the story that we saw in Queen Charlotte. Yeah, like those are my feelings about this. I want to know, what did you guys think about this whole situation between these three? Did you think that this was a forgivable thing between the sisters? Again, I do not think that the writer of the story has a sister, because I don't think that this is something sisters would necessarily have. Like, this is not the typical experience for sisters to have, okay? So as much as I loved Anthony, I don't like how their story came about, because Edwina was deeply hurt by this. Obviously, we know that Kate always meant good for her sister, right? Kate was always looking out for her. And even Edwina knew this. But Edwina was so upset that when Kate was talking about how, she was her sister and she would never let any harm come to her, Edwina was like half sister. I think that was where we saw the villain part of Edwina come out, because Edwina has always been the like polite, goody tissues girl, but when she was upset here, she reminded Kate of a place. She was like, my sister. And people are upset about Edwina's reaction, but I think that it was warranted, to be honest. I think that she had a right to be upset, to be this upset about the situation. And yeah, let me know what you guys thought of this. I don't believe it's a love triangle, because it would just be weird calling this a love triangle. But I would like to know what you thought of this situation. What would be your advice for someone in Kate's shoes? Like, what should you do really if you're in this kind of situation? And if you want more videos, more of my thoughts about TV shows, movies, there should be one showing on screen right now, so you can feel free to watch the one on Gilmore Girls or the one on Mean Girls. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.